Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
The NFC is about to go on a big run. I'm talking Lombardi Trophy after Lombardi Trophy. The NFC is about to rack up Super Bowls, and this run, it may last a decade. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and in live moving pictures on ESPN News. You can always join the conversation, 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Coming up on today's show, the Seattle Seahawks reject the Dallas Cowboys, and Earl Thomas ends his holdout. LeVeon Bell is still nowhere to be found, and President Donald Trump tweets about Colin Kaepernick and Nike's endorsement deal. But we start with what I think is going to lay the groundwork for Super Bowl after Super Bowl. We start with what I think is going to be a decade plus of dominance by the National Football Conference. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Everybody and their mama has a power list out tonight, a power rankings list out, a odds of making the Super Bowl, an odds of winning the Super Bowl, a 1 to 32 ranking. Everybody from Bill Barnwell to your mama has one before the season cuts off. And in looking at how this all shakes out, looking at how the NFC dominates current power rankings, and looking at who has a realistic shot of winning the Super Bowl, it occurred to me one thing. Yes, you've got the Patriots and Steelers. And yes, after that, your contenders are littered with NFC teams. But let's look beyond this year. Let's look beyond our power rankings. Let's look beyond our odds. Let's look into the future. Because if I ask you what teams in the NFL have a window that is opening, optimism, promise, a prospect of a better future. If I ask you whose window is opening on a potential title contention, I really, really challenge you to come up with an AFC team at all. Now, when we talk about championship windows, we talk about, are you in the early stages? Do you have a young quarterback? Do you have a good defense? Do you have a strategy, perhaps, where you could build around a guy on a rookie quarterback deal so you can land big free agent defensive players? You've got a program, a strategy, an identifiable plan. And in the NFC, it's easy to come up with teams where you say their window is either at its peak now or on its way up. You've got the Philadelphia Eagles. With one Super Bowl trophy in hand and with a rookie quarterback, you have to say the Eagles are nowhere near the closing window of their title contention. They're probably not even yet at the peak of their open window. That thing for the Eagles is still on its way up. It's still opening. The future is bright for as far as you can see. Shockingly, you can say the same thing about the Minnesota Vikings in the voodoo math of salary cap economics they're running up there in the Great North. Somehow, the Vikings can have a franchise quarterback they're paying records amounts of guaranteed money to and still sign Anthony Barr, Xavier Rhodes, Danielle Hunter, still sign good defensive players, still have a good, well-rounded team, and a running back on a rookie deal. The Vikings window is still opening. You may laugh at this. You may hate me for this. I don't care. The Cowboys window is on the way up. With Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott and a defense that everybody continues to overlook. The Cowboys 2 to 3 years from now look better than they do today. And who they are today, I'm going to tell you something. They are a title contender today. So their window is now, and their window is opening. That's 3 teams, but you can keep going, obviously. The Los Angeles Rams are in the early stages of this build. The Los Angeles Rams window is opening. That's 4 teams: Eagles, Rams, Vikings, Cowboys. They are not, Booger. You're not allowed to drop into my show on random notice and tell me things like that. Booger, if you keep calling in, I'm going to have to lose your number. That's it, Booger. You're out. 4 teams. 4 teams in the NFC you can say the window is opening. Now I'm going to ask you this. Mike A., you can take a minute from dropping Booger into my program randomly. Travis can take his mind off Bucknut's comment section. Cerruti can do his job for an occasion. And you can tell me, name one AFC team whose window is opening like the 4 NFC teams I just mentioned. Name one. One team where you can say they're in their title window and it's on the rise.
I don't have one.
I took from your silence that it's difficult.
We were talking about this in the pre-show meeting. You guys are making cases for all these teams. I didn't think there was any.
If you take the Patriots and the Steelers out of the equation, and for that matter, I think the Chargers are in a title window as well. But with Phillip Rivers at this stage in his career, you'd be hard-pressed to say, you know what's going on with the Chargers? A window that's getting bigger, a window that's opening. You cannot find an AFC version of the Rams. You can't find an AFC version of the Vikings. You can't find an AFC version of the Cowboys. We know you can't find an AFC version of the Eagles. One where not only do you have a shot now, but your future looks brighter. I don't think you can find it. The best I could come up with was these teams right here. The Houston Texans. I think the Houston Texans are looking at a potential opening of the window, but it isn't open yet. The Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are possibly entering a half-decade of possible contention if, underline, bold, capitalize, if Pat Mahomes is the real deal. The Jaguars, you guys all think I give the Jaguars not enough respect. I understand who their defense is, but I give you Blake Bortles. The Titans have a few elements, but how am I going to stop seeing 8-8 every time I look at the Titans? 9-7, 8-8, 7-9. How am I ever going to look past that? I'll tell you how. Marcus Mariota is going to have to be better than what he's been, and he's been good, but he's going to have to be great. I can't find an AFC team whose window is now and whose window is opening. I can't find an AFC version of the Rams, Vikings, Eagles, and Cowboys. Can you?
The Texans won. All their hope lies on Deshaun Watson. The defense was, I know they had injuries. It was bad last year. I think it was worst in points per game. Their offensive line's bad. I know they have some weapons, but basically you're just basing that off of one guy as Deshaun Watson. So they're out for me. I've only seen 7 games of Deshaun Watson.
If I have to pick one of these 4, Jags, Titans, Chiefs, and Texans, it's the Texans that are the closest. They're not the Rams, obviously. They're not the Vikings. I don't think they're the Cowboys. But if I find one, if I'm searching with a magnifying glass in the AFC, if I'm taking a risky bet, I'm going to place it on Houston. I like their defense. I like DeAndre Hopkins. I like Deshaun Watson. They have elements. But you're right. It's one season of Deshaun Watson. It's not even that. It's one half of one season of Deshaun Watson. What this all adds up to is an AFC that after the Patriots and Steelers are gone is incapable of keeping up with the arms race of the NFC. It adds up to an NFC that dominates Super Bowls for possibly a decade. That's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Coming up, if you think that's a hot take, if you think that's outlandish, if you think I got over my skis on that, wait till I lay out the history for you. You think that's not possible? I tell you it's not only possible, it's probable that one conference dominates the Super Bowl for a decade, and we're primed for it to be the NFC. Give me your rebuttal. Give me the AFC team whose window is opening. 888-729-3776. That's straight ahead on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. If you suffer from allergies or asthma, I bet it goes nuts this time of year, but not anymore. Ditch your HEPA home air filter for a molecule. Molecule is the new science in air purification. Molecule doesn't try to trap airborne toxins, it destroys them. I repeat, it destroys them with nanotechnology before you breathe them in and get sick. Get a Molecule air purifier. You'll feel better, breathe easier, and sleep better immediately, and if not, send it back for a refund. Visit getmolecule.com, and listen to this now. Get $75 off with the promo code WILL, W-I-L-L. That's $75. That's no little dinkly little discount. $75. That's Molecule with a K. Get molecule.com. Who in the AFC's window is opening? The Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
It's been a long off season without football, but FanDuel has spent it getting into the best shape of their lives. That means this. FanDuel is ready for more. More ways to play. More ways to challenge your friends. And most importantly, more ways to win. FanDuel also has new options for playing daily fantasy with your friends, because the only thing better than winning cash is winning your friends cash. Right now, you can get a $20 bonus when you make your first deposit on FanDuel. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/Stephen A. Age and state restrictions apply.
Going to say it starts this year. I'm not going to write off the New England Patriots just yet. I'm not ready to chisel their tombstone just yet. But the NFC is about to go on a big run. The NFC is poised to dominate the NFL for the next, 5 to 10 years. And it's because I can't find an AFC team whose window is opening. I can't find an AFC version of the Rams, of the Vikings, of the Cowboys, and obviously of the Eagles. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80. You can give me a call, 888-729-3776, or once you get home from your commute, you can flip it on over to ESPN News and watch us and hang out with us there. This isn't outlandish. In fact, the last decade in the NFL has been a massive aberration. What's gone on in the last decade isn't the history of the NFL. When I tell you one conference is about to start dominating the championship game, one conference is going to own all the Lombardi trophies, listen to the history of the NFL. After the Packers' first 2 Super Bowls, from 1969 to 1981, the AFC went 11-2 in Super Bowls. Then, starting in 1982, all the way through 1997, the NFC went on a 15-1 record. Now, I know this was during my childhood, my golden years. People used to talk about, will the AFC ever win another Super Bowl? And it wasn't just because the NFC won every year. It was because they blew them out year after year. The Niners blowing out the Broncos. Whatever it was, year in and year out, it was like, why don't we just play the NFC Championship game and call it a day? But it wasn't over. Because from 1998 to 2007, the tide tilted back to the AFC. The AFC went 9-3 during that 12-year span. And then comes the aberration, the last decade. The last decade is the only time frame where you could say it's been an even split. From 2008 to now, it's been 6-5 in Super Bowls. 6-5 split between the AFC and the NFC. The other 3-4 odd decades of NFL history have been heavily tilted one way or another. Now, most of the time, those eras of dominance were built upon the backs of approximately 2 teams. In the 60s and 70s, when it was the AFC's run, it was built on the backs of the Pittsburgh Steelers and, to a lesser extent, the Oakland Raiders and Miami Dolphins. Then in the 80s and 90s, when it went so heavy NFC, it was built on the backs of the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys. And then, in the 2000s, as it swung back to the AFC, that's the Patriots and the Broncos. And only in the last decade has it been this, well, it's anybody's ball game, split. So if I think the next decade goes back to form, goes back to history, A, it's the NFC's turn, and B, I can't find that promising, built for the future, title window is opening and open now version of the Rams, the Vikings, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. Who in the AFC, who will be competing for titles 3, 4, 5 years from now? Logan in Tennessee, you're on the Will Cain Show.
I think the Titans window is a little bit better than the Cowboys window right now. I think the Titans already and in the future have a better defense led by Kevin Byard. I think Marcus Mariota and Dak Prescott are very similar, with giving the edge to Mariota going into this year, coming off the playoff win last year, and with Matt LaFleur running their offense finally. I think with the Cowboys' injuries for this year and in the future, locking up Taylor Lewan, we have Taylor Lewan and Jack Conklin, two of the best tackles in football, and Corey Davis is better than any wide receiver on the Cowboys team.
All right, Logan, thank you for the call. I'm being a polite host by letting you go on and on. Wrong, and wrong. Okay, there is not one statistical measure wherein you can tell me that Marcus Mariota is ahead of Dak Prescott. You cannot sell me on, I think Marcus Mariota's future is a little bit brighter than Dak Prescott. You can't find a black and white statistical, on paper, fact to point to. You can't. And what else are you going to sell me on? Derrick Henry over Zeke Elliott? I appreciate you giving Kevin Byard a little love. Somebody needs to give that guy some love. He's a great player. But I'm telling you right now, when I walk into that control room and I say to Nuno and Bubba and Cerdy, hey, you guys are sleeping on the Cowboys, I've got one thing in my mind and one thing only. Randy Gregory. I got defense and I got Randy Gregory, and you think I'm joking.
I don't think Mariota and Dak is that ridiculous.
It's not even close. It's ridiculous.
I would probably. I'm not saying. I think you're saying it's not even close. It's close.
To just in case I don't want to make sure that anybody's confused here. So just it's not close. Just in case that could be misconstrued, I just want to lay it out more clearly. It's not close.
Well, Travis brings up a good point.
But he doesn't if it's not close. If he says anything but it's not close, it's not a good point.
You make fun of these two guys. You say he goes on Bucknuts too much, and Mike is a Jets homer. You might be a bigger homer than the two of them combined.
Oh, well, wake up and smell the coffee. Welcome to the Will Cain show.
Call the kettle black.
I mean, when did you just get here?
Doing?
Well, you want to go cliche for a cliche with me? You pot call the kettle black? You think I just threw 2 to your 1? I mean, you've been producing the Will Cain show for some 7 or 8 months, and he just acted like it was a revelation that I might be a Cowboys homer. Get out of here,
Thanks, Booger.
Dave in South Dakota, you're on the Will Cain show. What's up, Dave?
Hey, Will, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. What's up?
Oh, I'm a huge Broncos fan, and I want to say the Broncos, but I'm just a huge Baker fan. I see the Browns coming through in that 3 to 5 year window. You can call me crazy. I don't smoke the stuff you do or drink near as much as you do, as some of your callers think you do, but I think the Browns are going to move up.
Dave, I appreciate you being a faithful listener, knowing that I have an opioid addiction according to some of my callers, and I'm a raging alcoholic as well. But I'm not smoking it either, Dave, because I'm going to tell you something. I think you're right. You know what, Mike, I see you shaking your head. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to say it right now. The answer might be the Browns. The best window, we're talking 3 to 5 years out. Oh, here comes the Jet stuff.
No, all I'm going to say is the Browns window is like the top floor in a Vegas hotel. They don't open.
You're just mad because earlier when you brought up Sam Darnold, the Jets, and I said, listen, you might have a window, but it's down the hall. You can see a crack, and you're thinking, I see sunlight. I'm going to run full bore down the hall and see if I can dive through that crack. This is our window, boys. Jets, Jets. Julian in Nevada. Quickly, Julian, you're on the Will Cain show.
Yeah, hi, Will. I think you're making a fatal flaw here in not remembering the Raiders dominate 2 years ago. I mean, we've got that core. We've got Derek Carr locked up in his prime.
You got
Amari Cooper.
Right, a different defense. Did Khalil Mack, and you got, oh, yeah.
Okay, well, and when we went 12-4, the Raiders gave up, didn't hold anyone to under 20 points except in like 3 games.
So who needs Khalil Mack?
The league's going away from defense with these new contact rules. But yeah, you got that one. We got 4 picks within the next 2 years to solidify that up. I mean,
now, Julian, truthfully, man, I don't hate what you're saying. I really don't. Jason Fitz is a host here on ESPN Radio. He has a show after me, Spain and Fitz. He's a big Raiders fan. And the funny thing is, we both were talking about Cowboys 13-3 2 years ago, 9-7 last year. Raiders 12-4 2 years ago, 6-10 last year. I said, who's the real Raiders? I'm asking you, Fitz. I'm asking a homer. Are they really the 12-4 team, or are they really the 6-10 team? And he looked me dead in the eye, in all sincerity, and he said, the 6-10 team. I don't think the Raiders count as one of these window opening teams. And I'm telling you, I can't find an AFC team that does. I can't find an AFC Rams, Vikings, Cowboys, and obviously Eagles. Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS-ConsumerAccess.org number 3030. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. So now we get these three-time Super Bowl champions walking through here on a regular basis, it feels like. That intro, I feel like I just said it yesterday.
What's up?
What's up?
What do you got?
I got ESPN NFL analyst Teddy Bruschi in studio.
Will, what's up, man?
Giving me straight talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. What do you got from me? You got any good stories? You had a little time off? Oh, just give me a little bit of Teddy Bruschi. Just a little taste.
Okay, I don't discriminate, okay, on anything, really. Sports also. So, you ever heard of pickleball?
Love pickleball.
You love pickleball?
Love
I'm
pickleball.
telling you, man, I bought my own racket. I got the good balls. I mean, I'm going to the high school tennis courts. I'm getting blue tape, this blue painter's tape, so I can paint out the pickleball. Tape out the pickleball court with my wife. Man, we played that all summer. Had some fun with that.
Now, hold on. Do you boys know what pickleball is? Travis, I got a yes. Rudy, you know?
No, I have no idea.
Mike A?
It's like people laugh because, oh, man, old people play pickleball. Like I said, I don't discriminate. If it's fun, it's fun. And you got those little – it's almost a mix between –
tennis and ping pong.
Yeah, tennis and ping pong. And I love both of them. So I was like, how come I'm not playing this? See?
Can I tell you, man, I've been doing it for 2 summers, I'd say, on vacation. I go to the same place for vacation. And by the way, the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio is the single source for pickleball talk in sports radio.
Yes.
And I'm not going to lie, I got some friends that are old. And they're like, you got to come out. I like to play a little tennis. Tennis is a good time. They said, you got to try pickleball. And I'm like you. I'm never going to say like, that's for old folks. I came out and I tried it.
Give it a shot, man.
So fun.
It is. The one thing I had to get used to the kitchen. Staying out of the kitchen.
Can't walk in the kitchen.
I think that's like a 7-foot area right from the net where you can't enter to hit. You can go up there with tennis and you can volley, but you can slam the ball, whatever you call it. But with pickleball, you got to stay behind that line. And, I had to figure out, can I jump over and hit and then land in the kitchen?
No, you can't land in the kitchen.
You got to stay out of the kitchen.
Now, see, here's what's funny. You can be a world-class athlete. You can be a 3-time Super Bowl champion. And a 75-year-old can whoop your butt. Am I wrong about pickleball?
I bet, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He can get you running around that court. It's all about placement. All about placement.
3-time Super Bowl champ, Teddy Bruschi here on the Will Cain Show. I just laid this out, man. I want to see what you think. I think the NFC is primed to dominate the NFL for years to come. Now, possibly not in the short term, because you still got some more Patriots life left, and the Steelers have an open window, I think, as well. But I can't find an AFC team whose window, Teddy, is opening the way the Rams, the Vikings, the Eagles are still in the opening phase of their window.
That's true.
And I truly think the Cowboys' window is opening. I can't find AFC versions of those teams.
Well, you can look in Houston and possibly see one if the defense stays intact. Romeo Crennel does a good job with him. Deshaun Watson maybe takes off as a quarterback, small sample size last year. But if Deshaun can be that explosive player he was, not even as explosive as it was at times last year, but still they haven't had a quarterback in so long. Are they a possible contender? You can look at them, but no, even the up and coming teams in the NFC, it looks like it's the dominant conference right now in terms of, I also look at Chicago, and even before they got Khalil Mack, seeing what Nagy's doing and seeing and just hearing and listening to the excitement in Trubisky's voice when he talks about the offense and the options off of each play that look the same, but it's the same play when we make them look different and make it look different and all the variations off of it, hearing him talk about it, who they're bringing in at the receiver position. I already was a fan of Danny Trevathan, Roquan Smith, a young player. If Leonard Floyd in that 3-4 defense can be a good rusher opposite Mack, even teams like Chicago, you see the plan.
Right.
You
exactly. There's a plan and a strategy where you see they're trying to build something. And Houston was the best I could do. Houston, and these guys are telling me, I'm not giving Jacksonville credit, is what people are saying.
All right.
So I don't know if Jacksonville.
A little bit, right? I mean,
they got to have a quarterback to win a Super Bowl.
Well, if Bortles, like they're saying, don't turn the ball over, and if you can run on 3rd and 5, take off.
You're already hemming and hawing. I can see in your eyes you don't believe what you're saying.
I believe in the defense in the running game. I'll say that. I mean, how far can they take it? For that to work, defense must be exceptional. And there were times in the playoffs last year towards the end, that defense of the Jaguars was not exceptional. And you can say all you want. Miles Jack was down. Wasn't down. And he could have got up and ran the football back when he forced the fumble versus the New England Patriots. But still, it wasn't. Did you need that play? Dominant defenses in running games work with those type of quarterbacks. So that's what they have to be.
You love talking to Teddy Bruschi here on the Will Cain Show. You love what the Bears are doing, but let me ask you an honest question. Do you think I agree with you. There's hope, okay? There's daylight. There's a strategy. There's a plan in Chicago. But I don't know if they're more than 4th in that division. AFC North. Can you put them ahead of even the Lions right now?
NFC North.
I'm sorry, NFC North, yeah.
Right. It's a competitive division. I mean, sure, of course, Packers, Vikings, and I'd go Lions right now too. I think Lions and Bears, that they're going to battle things out. I just think that they can be a surprise this year even, because what we're used to seeing is that offense of last year. And what Nagy's going to bring in terms of that creativity is going to be something people are I think they're really going to open their eyes and see like, whoa, we might have something here with this kid.
Let me ask you 2 quick business decisions. What would you give up, say you were a team like the Dallas Cowboys, what would you have given up for 1 year of Earl Thomas in draft capital?
For 1 year?
He's a free agent next year.
Shoot, 1 year of draft capital for Earl.
Reports are the Cowboys offered a 2, and the Seahawks said no thank you.
That's the max. I mean, if you think you're getting 1 year. Would you have the assumption, though, if you made that trade, you got to figure something out? Maybe Earl's got now he has motivation to stay there, and you can
what the Bears did with Mack. You think you could work something out.
Yeah, but if for just 1 year, I don't think they got to be thinking 1 year for a 2. I mean, it's got to be less than that for just 1 year.
Yeah.
You think that he'd make some kind of commitment to him. Yeah.
And then LeVeon Bell still has not reported to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's some suggestions he may even go into the season now, skip these, what is he going to make, $850,000 a week, skip these almost $1 million weekly paychecks for long-term preservation of his career. Good business?
For him, it's good business, and it hurts for Steelers fans to hear that, and even guys, and I mean, even just fans of the Steelers and of LeVeon Bell, but he's going to be 27 in February. And you got his 27-year, 28, 29, 30. That's prime running back years, and he saw what Todd Gurley got. And what you see now, Will, is players willing to take a hard line. And players that take a hard line that are getting rewarded. All right, I'm holding out. No, franchise tag, whatever. I'm not coming in. Okay, Aaron Donald, here you go. Khalil Mack, you're gone. Okay, here you go. Bang. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. getting his money. So that's almost like motivation to LeVeon, to him, to his future career about this is what I have to do. I have to do it because for me it's what's best. And if you know that there's no future in Pittsburgh beyond this year, if I am a suitor, if I'm the other 31 teams, let's say there's 20 of them that want him, okay? I don't need to see anything. Do you need to see anything from him this year? If he didn't play a snap this year, would you still covet him in the offseason? Absolutely, because you've seen so much. So worst case scenario, if I'm on the Steelers roster offensively and also a fan, worst case scenario is he comes in there for 6 games, get an accrued season, and then he's out. We'll see how he plays it.
And that would be giving up roughly, what is that, 6 game 10? It's almost what, $10 million that he's given up? That's a $10 million gamble on a big contract that's coming his way.
It's a $10 million gamble, absolutely, to ensure your health for how much more would you get? You know,
not many guys go to the roulette table with $10 million and chips.
Yeah.
As a big chip pile. All right, man. Let's play pickleball sometime.
Hey, let's do it, man.
I have to come to Boston. Is that where you are? Somewhere in Massachusetts?
We can figure it out. I'll bring the painter's tape.
You got to paint the courts over here in Connecticut. Yeah. All right, good to see you, bud.
I will, thanks.
All right, if I think the Cowboys' window is now, and I might be on an island with this one, but if I think their window is now, should they go all in? Should they give in more for Earl Thomas from the Seahawks? That's next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Asked this question a week ago here on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80 and ESPN News. We asked, if your window is now, if you're an NFL team and you believe you've got a chance to win a championship, how much are you willing to go all in with? How much would you have given up for Khalil Mack? How much if John Lynch's dreams had come true and Bill Belichick had said, yeah, we'll listen to offers for Brady? How much would you give to put yourself into contention? It might just be apropos for the Dallas Cowboys and their negotiations with the Seattle Seahawks over Earl Thomas. That in just a moment on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. But I've been asking, who in the AFC's window is open and on the way up? Who's got that fairy dust, that potential, that bright future of the Rams, the Eagles, the Vikings, and even the Cowboys? Andrew in Oregon, you're on the Will Cain Show.
Hey, Will, thanks for having me. Before you laugh me off the show, I just want to make a case for the Denver Broncos.
Okay.
Now, I get it. You got Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, Shaquille Barrett, all great pass rushers. With Shane Ray coming off an injury, could hopefully have a good year. And then you got Case Keenum, who I think's trying to prove it wasn't a fluke year from Minnesota. So, with all good things going, Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas and the wideouts leading up, Cortland Sutton, Deshaun Hamilton, who are looking real good right now in camp and leading up throughout the preseason. But I'll admit, it's not on the tier of those NFC teams, but they do, I think, have a chance to at least just down the road, John Elway make a move, work out.
Listen, Andrew, Andy, if you don't mind me calling you, stay on the line here, bud. Even if I gave in, even if I said the Broncos were some sneaky contender in the AFC, how would you sell me on their window is on the way up? How would you sell me on Case Keenum at age 30, finally found out who he is? And I doubted Case Keenum far too long last season. But I can't look at the Denver Broncos with Case Keenum at the helm and say, you know what? That's a team on the rise. Even if I accepted that's a sneaky team for the present, how would I believe that's a team for the future? And I'll ask you one question, Andy, because we're old friends now. Would you rather,
all right,
in all honesty, would you rather have the Denver Broncos roster or the Chicago Bears roster right now?
Oh, I take Denver Broncos. I get that they got Khalil Mack now. Thankfully, he left Oakland.
And Leonard Floyd and Jordan Howard and Allen Robinson and Danny Trevathan.
Roquan Smith.
And Roquan Smith. And Mitch Trubisky. But you're going to roll with Von Miller into the future, who's great. But which one of those teams has a brighter future? Thanks for the call, Andrew. One of the things I learned in law school, actually I probably learned it on Law and Order, was when you are cross-examining a witness, never ask a question that you don't know the answer to. So in other words, it's not a time to go fact-finding. It's not a time to let your curiosity run wild. You are putting that witness on the stand to put his testimony in doubt. You should know how every question should be answered before you ask it, because you've already been to deposition. You've already done fact-finding. You've already done discovery. You know the answer to these questions. So what you're doing on trial is you're putting on show for the jury. Never ask a question you don't know the answer to. I should have known Andrew was going to say Broncos. Like, who would you rather have, Broncos or Bears? He just told me the Broncos are a team for the future. You think he's really going to turn around and go Bears? What a failure of law school I am. Gary in Pennsylvania, you're on the Will Cain Show.
Hey, Will, thanks for having me on. Love the show, but when you talk about the Cowboys, you are just as delusional about just like all these Eagles fans that I'm around. The Dak Prescott is a below-average quarterback when Zeke is not there. So when Zeke gets suspended again for doing something stupid, or when it comes time for him to re-up, they're not going to be able to afford both. And then they have, I believe they have contracts come up for the offensive line. With the 6 games that Zeke was gone last year, they were 3-3. He had 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Those 5 touchdowns came over the course of 2 games. He had 3 lost fumbles, and he only passed over 200 yards twice.
Gary, listen. This is going to be a lot of fun for me. This season, I'm going to come in on Mondays, and I am going to laugh my way home. Guys like Gary, a lot of you out there in the militia, certainly Bubba, Nuno, and Cerruti, I'm about to go on a magical run. This is going to be amazing. By the way, the Cowboys line is locked up. Paid. Not a problem. This is going to be great. Now, by the way, if I'm right that the Cowboys window is now, should they have gone in on Earl Thomas? Because reports from Adam Schefter are the Cowboys held true to a third-round pick for a long time. But within the past week, they upped their offer to the Seahawks to a second-round pick. And for that value, for that increase in negotiation, the Seahawks said thank you, but no thank you. Earl Thomas is now going to report to the Seattle Seahawks. If you're the Cowboys and you believe, as I do, that your window is now, should they go in on Earl Thomas? Should they give more than a second for a guy who's a year away from free agency? I love Earl Thomas. He's a Longhorn. I think he'd be transformative for that defense. But you can't give more than a 2. Not for 1 year. Not for the chance at renegotiation. You can't give more than 2 when the safety market is so depressed. Earl Thomas is the best safety in the game? Is he going to be immune from what we saw happen to safeties this past offseason? It's not just Eric Reed. It's every safety had trouble getting paid. I hope it's not the same for Earl Thomas.
Thank you for listening to the Will Cain Podcast. You can listen to The Will Cain Show live weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Will Cain Podcast.
Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
How long will the Pittsburgh Steelers have to wait on LeVeon Bell? It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80. And you can watch us talk on ESPN News. You can also join the conversation, 888-729-3776. That's a question that I'm going to put to a man at ESPN that knows better than any other. It's Adam Schefter on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Adam, let's save the LeVeon Bell news and questions for the end of our conversation. That could be a mistake because once we go into your new book, it may be hard to come back from this conversation, but it's one I want to start with anyway. Adam, you know, is the ESPN NFL insider, but he also has a new book out called The Man I Never Met. Adam's been making the rounds. He's talked on various ESPN shows, and he was recently on Good Morning America talking about his book. It's about his wife's first husband, who died on 9/11. Adam's written a book. In many ways, it's a tribute to a man, as the title suggests, that he never met. Adam, let's just start with this, man. What made you want to write this book?
Well, obviously it's a complex story, and my wife once pointed out to me 6-7 years ago, she said, a lot of what you do is very public. Why don't you ever acknowledge the fact that you're married to a 9/11 widow? And I said, because you are the most intensely private person I know, and I didn't know that you wanted me to do that. And she said, I would like that. And I said, my pleasure. So we wound up doing a story that ESPN signed off on, actually, when initially it had said no a couple of years before on the 15th anniversary of 9/11, ran on the opening day of the 2016 NFL season, and it was a tribute to Joe Mayo, the man who my wife was married to, who lost his life on 9/11 at the age of 32. And that piece generated so much reaction, touched, moved, inspired so many people. I'm at my desk right now at ESPN. I remember getting back to this desk that day 2 years ago this week, and there were 100 emails that poured in from corners of the country that I never would have expected to hear from. Hollywood, the White House, other sports. It was crazy. And the piece just generated a tremendous reaction. And it got people thinking that there should be a book. Now, again, I didn't know what form a book would take, and I didn't know that we could do it or that I wanted to do it. And we wound up doing it, and it took over the last year to put together and write. And again, it was designed to be a story of Joe's life. And I wrote it with my co-writer, Michael Rosenberg, who writes for Sports Illustrated, a tremendously gifted writer. And the push and pull and tug of war that we kept having, he wanted a little bit more of me, and I wanted less of me and more of Joe. And we kept going back and forth on that front. And we wound up where we did. And the book came out Tuesday, Will. And again, I hope a lot of people read it, but the truth of the matter is that all that really mattered to me was that Paula and George Mayo, Joe's parents, and my wife and our son, that they would be good with the book. And they read the book, and they loved the book. So from that standpoint alone, honestly, anything else that happens from this point on is gravy.
It's ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter, who has a new book out entitled The Man I Never Met, here on the Will Cain Show. There's so many people, Adam, that I'm fascinated by in this story. There is, of course, you. There's your wife. There's your son, whose biological father was Joe Mayo. And there is Joe himself. So I think it's only appropriate if I ask you this first, because the title is The Man I Never Met. What is it you wanted us to know about Joe, the way he lived or the way he died?
Well, honestly, Will, there are certain people that I've really never gotten a chance in my life to know that have always fascinated me. I've always had a fascination with John F. Kennedy, for whatever reason. I've always had a fascination with my father's father, who died when I was a year and a half old. And I've always asked my parents all about him. And I've also had an equal fascination with Joe. And I know it sounds kind of weird, but by all accounts, he was this enormously successful, very handsome, very charismatic, very charming man. And, it's funny, when I met my wife and we were dating, and I had dated, I've had a lot of failed relationships over the years, but I almost felt like when I was dating her and I heard all about Joe and I had learned about Joe, that it was almost like cheating, like taking a test that you knew the answers to, like, well, if she was good enough for Joe to marry, then she's good enough for me to marry. And so what was I hoping to learn? I was hoping to get more of an education on Joe, which I did, and was hoping to give people more of an idea. And like I said, that TV story that ran on 9/11, the 15th anniversary, generated such a reaction that the idea was, well, that's a 6+ minute television piece. And we were very pleased with the way it worked out. But this is a 200-page book that's more detailed, more personal, more descriptive, more in-depth about Joe's life. And so that's what that was about.
You're the guy I know in this story. Until I read the book, Adam, you're the one that I know. And one of the things I think is fascinating, and you and I, for that matter, don't know each other incredibly well, but my dad died when I was fairly young, not as young as your son, and my mom remarried, and it always struck me. It's always been amazing to me to think about my mom's new husband, who's an incredible guy, but the level of confidence it takes to own the relationship she had before you. Your embracing of what came before you, I just think reveals, I don't even have a question at the end of this, Adam, I guess it's a statement, a massive amount of confidence in yourself, but also in your relationship and your love. And I think it's truly amazing.
Well, I guess, thank you. I've never thought of myself in that regard, Will, as an overly confident person. I really haven't. I've had various reasons in various stages of my life not to be confident. And I mean, that's meaningful, but I do hope, like a story like this, what's been very gratifying, fulfilling for me is that there have been people who've read it, and there have been a lot of people who've gotten a lot of different things out of it. Like, people talk about the love of family and the strength of family to guide you through dark days, and people talk about, learning all about Joe, and people talk about learning all about Shaq. Like, everybody's come back to me with a different comment that's read it, which has been really interesting to see how different people pick up different things from reading it. Have you read the full book yet? Have you read it all?
I have not.
Yes.
I do intend to.
Well, I if and when you do, and I'd be grateful if you do, I'd be curious to know, what you take out of it from somebody in your position who's been through everything that you have.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I will read it, and I will I'll circle back with you. I promised a hard turn. I'm going to make a hard turn, okay? Yeah. It's Adam Schefter, author of The Man I Never Met, and he's ESPN's NFL insider, of course. Can you give me the latest on LeVeon Bell? When do you expect him to be back with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, again, I'd be surprised if he's there in time to play Sunday. I don't expect that right now. I think he's going to miss Sunday's game. And I think it becomes a week-to-week decision for LeVeon Bell and his agent, Adisa Bakari, who was on NFL Live this afternoon saying, and I quote him, he's going to do the things necessary to protect his long-term value. That gives you pause, right? Like, that makes you wonder when we're going to see him. I just think that basically we have a situation here where I think he's going to miss some time. I don't think it's going to be a long time, but I think he'll miss whatever it may be, a game, 2, 3 games, and that's how it's going to go moving forward.
All right, Adam, I promise I'm going to check out the book, and I look forward to talking to you about it once I get it done. I appreciate your time today, man.
You got it, Will. I appreciate having me. Thank you very much. Enjoy the book, and let me know if when you get a chance to read it.
Okay, that's ESPN's NFL insider and author of the book, The Man I Never Met, Adam Schefter. Coming up, one of LeVeon Bell's teammates has some harsh words for the Steeler running back. That's next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Imagine this is you. You're working late when you get an alert on your smartphone. Your motion-activated Blink security camera picked up something at home. You pop open your Blink app and you see the silhouette of a man peering through the kitchen window. You dial 911 and the police roll. The job of a home security system is to help stop crime, which is why you need to choose Blink. Get 3 Blink cams for way less than the other guy, plus an extra 15% off. Visit blinkprotect.com/ESPN. That's blinkprotect.com/ESPN. LeVeon Bell, how long will the Steelers have to roll without him? Next on the Will Cain Show. It's been a long offseason without football, but FanDuel has spent it getting into the best shape of their lives. That means this: FanDuel is ready for more. More ways to play, more ways to challenge your friends, and most importantly, more ways to win. FanDuel also has new options for playing daily fantasy with your friends, because the only thing better than winning cash is winning your friends' cash. Right now, you can get a $20 bonus when you make your first deposit on FanDuel. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/Will Cain. Age and state restrictions apply. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app. SiriusXM Channel 80 and ESPN News. Wait till you hear what some of Le'Veon Bell's teammates are saying about him. Just had Adam Schefter on the phone. He said, Bell's agent, Adisa Bakari, is saying this is a business decision. It's a long-term business decision. It's about preserving his market value a year from now. And some of Bell's teammates, well, they don't like the way that medicine's going down. First, Bell's agent, Adisa Bakari.
We know the franchise tag does not work. The franchise tag has a strategy to sign players who are elite-level players that we have, quite frankly, outseen the efficacy of the franchise tag. It is a recipe for disaster. When you have targeted a player on your roster who's an elite-level player, you sign him and you sign him early. That is in the interest of everybody, the team included. That wasn't done in this case. If you don't sign that player early, a la in the current CBA after 3 years, then unintentionally, as an organization, you're betting on what? That somehow his talent will diminish, because it's only the diminishing of his talent that will result in his market value going down. But if a player is a special player and he's entering the prime of his years, it's a safe bet that each year you pass on doing a long-term deal, he's going to get better and therefore better. And consequently, the value that he's going to command is going to do what? Increase.
It's true. He is a special player. LeVeon Bell is a special player. He's also 27 years old, and he plays running back in the NFL. Two facts that work against him in getting paid. But as he has chosen to not yet report to Pittsburgh Steelers team facilities, he's missing out on game planning for the opening weekend. He's missing out on what the Steelers will do this weekend against the Browns. Cerruti, you had this a little bit earlier. By 4 o'clock today was a suggestion that was the deadline for him to partake in putting the Sunday game plan in place, one that would include LeVeon Bell. Yes?
Yes.
So he has now missed that deadline, and his teammates aren't too happy. These are tweets Jeremy Fowler is putting out. This seems to be personal for some of the Steelers. This is Marquise Pouncey. It's bigger than business. Some players felt he played peekaboo by not committing to his absence earlier. Pouncey says, the business part I get, but not if it's game day. We have a game this Sunday. We're all the way into the game plan and you're still not here? And then his teammate Ramon Foster on Bell turning down nearly $1 million a week to not be with the Steelers. In the ultimate team sport, we've created a league of individuals. But Bell's agent, Adisa Bakari, goes on and says this is what's needed for his career.
LeVeon Bell is one of the most intelligent young players in this league. From the very beginning, we explained to him that our job is to help him make informed business decisions. So, look, don't have a conversation with LeVeon and expect him to forget what you say, because everything you tell him, he's going to remember it and be able to regurgitate it to you years later. He understands the business concerns and consequences of the decisions he's made. As far as his mental makeup, he want nothing more than to join his teammates and go about the mission of winning a Super Bowl in Pittsburgh. But then there's the business reality that he's forced to contend with. And it's a difficult decision to make, but on balance, it's the right decision to make. And so he's struggling. He would love to be in the black and yellow getting ready for week 1, but he's not. When he decides to report, he'll be there, and he'll give everything he has once he shows up.
It's one hell of a business decision. For that matter, it's one hell of a roll of the dice. It's a gamble. It's a potentially $10 million gamble for LeVeon Bell. You see, he's giving up $1 million in paychecks for every week that he's absent. He's on the franchise tag, which is scheduled to pay him close to $15 million in 2018. For every week that he's gone then, the paycheck he forgoes is up to $1 million. As Teddy Bruschi, who was just in our show a little bit earlier, you can get it on Apple, iTunes, or the ESPN app podcast. He said, to preserve his long-term market value, to get that big-time contract for the 20-some-odd teams next year that might pay LeVeon Bell, whatever it takes, he's going to gamble $10 million today for $50 million tomorrow. And you can only imagine as Bell watched these hard holdouts, these hard lines in the sand, work out for Khalil Mack, work out for Aaron Donald, he has to wonder if it's going to work out for him. But one group of guys it doesn't seem to be working out for is his Pittsburgh Steelers teammates, because offensive lineman Ramon Foster has more. This is from Ed Bouchette on Twitter. Foster, the Steelers player rep, said the following as well. What do you do? Here's a guy who doesn't give a damn, I guess, so we'll treat it as such. I just hate it came to this. More from Ramon Foster via Ed Bouchette. He's making 7 times what I make, twice as much as Al, meaning Al Villanueva, is making, and we're the guys who do it for him. And there's more. Ramon Foster with one more comment on LeVeon Bell, this one from Josh Roundtree on Twitter. My mom died. I went to the funeral and came to camp the next day. Al, meaning Al Villanueva, has seen people die and has come and given his all to this team. It's a little bit tiresome now. I'm tired of the antics. Let me ask you a question. How does this shake out? You can talk about the business, you can talk about the finances, and you can talk about whether or not LeVeon Bell is going to get a long-term deal with the Steelers or how long his holdout will last. How does this ever get reconciled? One of the cardinal rules in the NFL is don't mess with another man's money. Don't get in the middle of another man's contract negotiations. How does LeVeon Bell come back to that Steelers locker room, a locker room that has not been buttoned down, A locker room where Ben Roethlisberger talks about Antonio Brown. And Antonio Brown, Facebook Lives, team meetings. A locker room that's had its differences during the national anthem debate. A locker room that's been accused of being loose and not cohesive. How does this play in that environment? How does Ramon Foster and Maurkice Pouncey play with LeVeon Bell? Some things just can't be fixed. The Will Cain Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Small business protection just got easier. With more than 30 coverage options available, Progressive has you covered. More at progressivecommercial.com. Coming up, 888-SAY-ESPN. Does LeVeon Bell owe the Steelers a heads up on when he'll arrive, or should they be forced to stick around in limbo and game plan with possibly John Connor, possibly LeVeon Bell? Well, but see, John was in
I know
Terminator.
What you're doing there. I know what you're doing.
Terminator?
But it's not.
But he was in Terminator.
You're right.
But that's what I was saying. Did you see Terminator?
I've seen some Terminators, yeah.
You haven't seen them all?
I don't know. I've seen some of the new ones. I think I've seen the old one where the guy melts.
But not all of them?
No, definitely not.
Okay, then we'll agree to disagree here. Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030. Big contract deal for Khalil Mack. Huge contract for Aaron Donald. Otherworldly contract for Aaron Rodgers. Which one of these guys, with their big money pockets, which one of these guys is under the most pressure to perform this year in the NFL? It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and ESPN News. Can you only imagine after this, after Ramon Foster, after Maurkice Pouncey, after Pittsburgh Steelers now have interjected themselves into the negotiations between the Steelers and Le'Veon Bell, can you only imagine after giving up $1 million check after $1 million check week after week, that should Le'Veon Bell get the deal he wants from the Steelers, what if he gets everything he's dreamed of? Can you only imagine the pressure that would go along with that contract? I'll tell you right now, if Le'Veon Bell gets the contract he wants after hearing from his teammates like this, he would go to the top of the rankings of which one of those big money new guys, and add Odell Beckham Jr. into that group as well. Top of the list of most pressure. But until then, I'll tell you which one I think is dealing with the most pressure. But first, Jordan from Pennsylvania. You're on the Will Cain Show.
Well, how's it going?
It's going well, man. What's up?
Hey, I think the way he heals the relationship with his teammates is winning kind of heals all, and I think this is almost the perfect setup. If he misses a few games that Adam Schefter, kind of alluded to earlier, that he's going to be looked at as more of a savior than anything for this team. Come back and really put this team in a position to make a run. I believe winning heals all. Look at the New England Patriots. How I don't believe for a second that Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady all get along. But winning heals all at the end of the day, man.
All right, Jordan, listen, thanks for the call, man. First, I'm going to attack that on 2 different points. First of all, if he gets his deal, if he decides to accept his franchise tag, if he reports a week or 2 into this deal, will he be seen as the savior? Well, the truth of the matter is, when it comes to these big-time holdouts, especially at the running back position, we can use history as a little bit of a guide. John Riggins, and this is back in the 80s, held out for an entire season. I'm not going to be able to remember off the top of my head, Travis or Srudy, you may be able to jump on this, but I believe Eric Dickerson had a long holdout as well at one point in his career. But one example that I remember crystal clear is that Emmitt Smith held out for 2 weeks with the Dallas Cowboys 2 weeks where they went 0-2. You didn't hear stuff like this coming out of the Steelers locker room, coming out about Emmett and the Cowboys at the time. But when Emmett came back, you're absolutely right, Jordan. Emmett was viewed as the hero, as the savior. The Cowboys got back on their winning ways and went back to winning Super Bowls with Emmett leading the way. Could that be true with Bell and the Steelers? But that brings me to your second point, which is a cliche we often hear. Winning cures everything. You'll forgive me, Jordan, if today those cliches just don't carry the same kind of weight. Those platitudes, those crutches, those things we fall back on to do no more thinking. Because one of the cliches that's constantly peddled that we hear from former athletes, and I'm not saying a cliche meaning it's false, I'm just saying it's something that's repeated ad nauseum, is you don't mess with another man's money. You don't get involved in a contract negotiation. You don't comment across the locker room on your paycheck. That's not true in Pittsburgh today. That little platitude, that little cliche, isn't the guiding light of Ramon Foster, offensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who's seeing things and saying things like, it's the ultimate team sport. We've created a league of individuals. Who's saying things like, he's making 7 times what I make and twice as much as what Al Villanueva is making, and we're the guys who are doing it for him. This is not the language that allows you to rest on cliches and platitudes. Mark in Maryland, you're on the Will Cain Show.
Hey, Will, first off, love the show. Second, honestly, when you turn around and you start talking, you have all pro centers and Pro Bowl guards and all these guys are all saying this. They're flat out telling you that we're done with the antics. Once, it's sort of like when you tweet. When you tweet something, it's out there, and you put something on social media, it's out there. You can't take it back. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. I'll be honest with you. Mike Tomlin is a phenomenal X's and O's coach, but he's losing control of his locker room. It goes back to the Antonio Brown thing. It goes back now to LeVeon Bell. It goes back to all this. This window for the Pittsburgh Steelers is closing. The players know it. They want him there to win, but they're done with the antics.
Great call, Mark. Thank you. Man, it does bring up what's different. If that's what we're always told in the past, don't mess with somebody's money, why do the Steelers, at least 2 players in this occasion, why do the Steelers feel differently? What's different about Le'Veon Bell's relationship with the Steelers, this moment in time, and his teammates? What's different? Because something is. Is it that their window's closing, like Mark just laid out? Is it that the environment has been one where there's not cohesion, where they've had spats between Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown and Mike Tomlin and Terry Bradshaw, Al Villanueva and the rest of the team on the anthem? What's different? What's different this time that the Steelers feel comfortable speaking out on Bell? Or is it just perhaps that it's drug on so long? Man, I think it's like that maxim when you watch a movie. If you want to get the audience to cry, if you want to get the audience to change, if you want to get them off home base, you can't just punch them once with an emotional impact. Nah, you got to yo-yo them. You got to punch them once. Give them something hard. Really bad breakup. Punch them again. Just when they think things are going to get better, hit them harder. Maybe a kid dies. Yo-yo it one more time. Give them a third punch right when they think everything's going to get better, and that's when the waterworks start. That's right, Mike. This time, it's a dog. You think country music's got anything on us? Watch this. Kid, dog, breakup. Punch, punch, punch. Waterworks start. Le'Veon Bell's kept the Steelers in that limbo. Up, down, in, out. On the team. Report late. Count on me. Don't know if I'll be there game day. Man, that yo-yo will change your emotions on somebody. It will get you off base. It'll make you change. Andrew in Idaho, you're on the Will Cain Show.
Hey, Will. Hey, thanks for my call. I want to know why there isn't the same pressure on the Steelers to sign Bell as there was for the Raiders to get Mack. The Raiders got raked over the coals for trading him, and you can argue that Bell's a lot more vital to the Steelers' success than Mack was to the Raiders. So, why isn't there that pressure for the Steelers to bring him in?
That's a great question, Andrew. And you know what? You need to put that question in the context of we're being told. Bucky Brooks was on the Will Cain show a few weeks ago, and he said it's now a league of passers, pass catchers, and playmakers, that the league is moving to offense, not defense. You would think by that analysis, the Steelers' unwillingness to give LeVeon Bell a long-term deal would be more indictable than the Raiders' unwillingness to give Mac a long-term deal. And yet every analyst and every former player, and hell, the current players, are all here to criticize the Raiders and their decisions when it comes to Mac. When it comes to Bell, camps are way more divided. Why is that? My best guess is Bell's a 27-year-old running back. Mac is a linebacker pass rusher. And the only other thing I would say is I'm not going to join the crowd of crucifying the Raiders over Mac. I'm not so sure that if everybody believes one thing, they might be missing something. I'm not so sure the Raiders didn't get the best they could of a bad situation. Trump chimes in on Nike and Colin Kaepernick. That just a moment on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. By the way, tune in tonight for an NL Central battle as the Brewers take on the Cubs, presented by Vivid Seats. Coverage begins at 7:30 Eastern Time on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. I got a lot of people tweeting me saying, hey, Will, the Steelers can't negotiate. The season's already begun. They can't give Bell a contract now. He's under the franchise tag. I don't know what I said that suggests I got that wrong, but I will say I appreciate the tweets because one thing that highlights is this. What's different? Well, yeah. A platitude, a cliche in the NFL is don't get between another man and his money. Don't get between another man and his negotiations. And Ramon Foster and Marquise Pouncey are clearly doing that now in Pittsburgh. But what they're getting in the way of is not any negotiations between the Steelers and Bell, at least not in 2018. They're getting in the way of negotiations between Bell and the market. Bell and what other teams might be bidding on him. Bell and perhaps the Steelers in 2019. See, according to Bell's agent, this is a long-term play. This is to preserve market value. Fewer reps, fewer carries, fewer games of exposure means better ability to get a contract when it comes to free agency. And as far as his teammates in Pittsburgh are concerned, to hell with that. That's what's clear. You know what this sounds like? I'll tell you who Ramon Foster sounds like. I'm going to tell you who Marquise Pouncey sounds like. Tony Parker. This sounds like the San Antonio Spurs talking about Kawhi Leonard. This isn't about you and the Steelers. This is about whether or not you are going to play with the Steelers ever. That's why these guys are speaking out. That's what's different. Because what he's sacrificing now is their present for his future. I'm sure that's what's got Ramon Foster and Marquise Pouncey suddenly willing to talk. Yesterday, we talked about Colin Kaepernick and the NFL's endorsement deal, and President Trump weighed in at a press conference, but now he's taken to Twitter, as he's wont to do. This is what President Trump had to say about Nike and Colin Kaepernick. He tweets, just like the NFL, whose ratings have gone way down, all caps, Nike is getting absolutely killed with anger and boycotts. I wonder if they had any idea that it would be this way. As far as the NFL is concerned, I just find it hard to watch and always will. Until they stand for the flag, all caps. That's President Trump tweeting on Colin Kaepernick and Nike. Yesterday I said, if the end result of Colin Kaepernick's protest was an endorsement deal with Nike, if the commercialization of this issue, if the commercialization of these protests is a step forward, I guess I just can't see it. Mike Golick Sr. and Mike Golick Jr. talked about what I had to say, what Stephen A. Smith had to say this morning on Golick and Wingo. Here's Golick Sr.
Nike is about selling gear and making money. If you want to believe it's under the guise of the social issue, well, I'm sure there's some intent there, but let's make no mistake about it. They're going to sell product from this, and they're going to make money. So you can choose whatever you want to do out there. If you don't like what they're doing, don't buy it. If you have no problem with it, you buy it. But I just found it odd that it was all going to Nike with what their thought process was and why it took so long, and now they're going to they're going to profit.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly as I said. an issue which many held dear to their hearts, an issue that many were true believers on, an issue that many, including myself, engaged with on an honest level despite our disagreements and was willing to have the debate that could lead to solutions if we could find places to move forward, has been turned into whether or not Nike can make it red or black on the bottom line in the fiscal quarter 4 of 2018. Yeah, I find that obvious. I also find it obviously revolting. Here's Mike Golick Jr. on Golick and Wingo.
Nike said, I think in general, about 3/4 of their sneaker purchasing power comes from ages 35 and under, in a group that's going to be a little more aligned with this. And if you're Nike, you've been primed for this. You got LeBron James and Serena and a bunch of other athletes on the payroll that have already been either A, supporting Colin, or B, saying a lot of the same things. Like, they absolutely knew this was a win. But the fact that it is a win is still, I think, the most noteworthy part of this.
Yeah, I get what Junior's saying. Nike's not stupid. I said that yesterday on this show. Nike knows business, and Nike wouldn't be doing this deal with Colin Kaepernick if they didn't think it was going to lead to increased profits. If they thought there was any doubt that in the end this would play into the red or black, they thought it would be a profit for them at the end. Now, I find that personally unbecoming. I find turning political issues, social issues, things of big import into endorsement deals, commercialization, high capitalism, a little bit revolting. However, if I'm willing to accept what Junior says here, that Nike did their bottom line research, their market research, and they knew how this would play, and I am willing to accept that, and that 35 and unders are more willing to accept this as a positive, and 35 and unders are willing to buy Nike products with Colin Kaepernick as an endorsement. And by the way, I don't know about 35, but I am willing to accept that younger people might lean more left, or younger people might lean more towards Kaepernick. I'm willing to accept that. I need to see the data, but just as a back of the envelope, I'm there with you. One thing I would say to Golick Jr. or anybody else is this. While people look back on their teens, even their 20s, with fondness and nostalgia, they like retro t-shirts and they want to hang on to their love of certain bands all the way into later in life. We even will go back and look at movies that we were into when we were younger. And that nostalgia carries forward into commercialization all into the future. One thing that doesn't stay constant, whether or not you're 18, 35, or 45, one thing that happens to change is your political beliefs. Not everything people believe at age 20, not their level of investment, not their knowledge, not their wisdom, is a constant. In fact, you can count on it changing. That might be important for Nike to acknowledge. This isn't just any other t-shirt. This isn't any other pair of shoes. You're now part of a political movement. And those customers might believe one thing at one point in their life, something else at a later. Got a whole new world here Nike's in. It's not the shoe market, the political market.
Thank you for listening to the Will Cain Podcast. You can listen to the Will Cain Show live weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Will Cain Podcast.
Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
LeVeon Bell is entering Kawhi Leonard territory. He's going to hold out. He's not going to show up. He's going to sell his present for a brighter future, even if that means selling the present of his current team for a team yet to be named. And just like Kawhi Leonard, his teammates are already speaking out. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. You can give me a call, 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. We'll get to LeVeon Bell and his Kawhi Leonard path in just a moment. But I ask you this. If LeVeon Bell does report, if LeVeon Bell gets back to the Steelers, be it under the franchise tag or a year from now under a new contract negotiation, the pressure that will accompany him will be massive. But it wouldn't be the most. It wouldn't be the most of the new, big money, deep-pocketed guys in the NFL. I give you Odell Beckham Jr., Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald, and Aaron Rodgers. And I ask you, which one of those new money guys carry the most pressure with them into the 2018 NFL season? I think the guy with the most pressure is Aaron Rodgers. Now, you can tell me, Aaron Rodgers, we already know who he is. Aaron Rodgers is already one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's already a one-man team, and my response to you is, he better be. There is no doubt where Aaron Rodgers is in the pecking order. He's second. He's the second best quarterback in the NFL, but let's not split hairs here. It doesn't matter if he's one or if he's two. What matters is, with the type of contract Aaron Rodgers just got from the Green Bay Packers, his team will have trouble building around him with big money players. His team will be in a situation not unlike that of the Oakland Raiders, with Derek Carr's deal becoming a huge hindrance to Khalil Mack's deal. The Green Bay Packers will have a hard time putting big-time defenders next to Aaron Rodgers, big-time receivers on the outside of Aaron Rodgers, or running backs and offensive linemen to help him along the way. Aaron Rodgers' deal will require him to be the exact thing that he is. Superman. A one-man show. A one-man team. Everyone uses that as a compliment when they talk about Aaron Rodgers. But that compliment has just become a burden. Aaron Rodgers may be a one-man team, but in 2018, and perhaps going forward, he's going to have to be a one-man team. And if I were selecting a second place for what it's worth, if it weren't Aaron Rodgers and I was asking who had the most pressure on them based upon their new contract and the new commitment by their team, my second place finish would be Khalil Mack. What the Chicago Bears just gave up in draft capital and in dollar signs for Khalil Mack, he better be a game changer in Chicago. 2 1s, a 3, a 6. He better be a game changer for Chicago, because they've banked a lot of their future on that one player. Chris in Michigan. You're on the Will Cain Show, Chris. What's up?
Hey, Will, love the show. I agree with your pick with Aaron Rodgers, just because he doesn't really have a scapegoat. There's no one else to fall back on. With Odell Beckham, they can blame Eli or the new coach or the new system. And with Khalil Mack, if he doesn't live up to the contract, they're going to blame the management in Chicago. But there's no one else in Green Bay to hold the buck except for Aaron Rodgers.
Appreciate the call, Chris. Brandon in Minnesota. You're on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Brandon?
Hey, Will. Thanks for taking the call. I think Kirk Cousins is under the most pressure, honestly. I mean, getting rid of a quarterback like Case Keenum, who almost took us to the Super Bowl last year, and then picking up Kirk Cousins, I just don't think he's that good of a quarterback, to be honest.
Well, I think it's a great point, Brandon. I appreciate the call, because Kirk Cousins has to be 1.5 games better than the Vikings were last year. There's massive pressure on Kirk Cousins, and it's quantifiable. We know exactly how much better Kirk Cousins has to be. 1.5 games better. But one thing Kirk Cousins has going for him in Minnesota that apparently neither the Oakland Raiders or the Green Bay Packers or anyone else that I've been able to identify yet is they've got some kind of voodoo math going on, some kind of voodoo economics, some kind of salary cap specialist up there that keeps Kirk Cousins being paid, Stephon Diggs paid, Anthony Barr, Xavier Rhodes, Danielle Hunter. Somehow Minnesota is exempt from the plague of the rest of the NFL. Well, if we pay this guy, how do we pay that guy? That brings me to this, which we talked about a little bit later, a little bit earlier on the Will Cain Show, which you can get on Apple, iTunes, or the ESPN app podcast. The Will Cain Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Remember, you can watch all 3 hours of the show on ESPN News. We talked about this earlier. How many teams in the league, for that matter, are true Super Bowl contenders? How many teams in the NFC? How many teams in the AFC? And how many teams can you say will be contenders for the future, that have potential, that have a window that's not only open, but a window that's already and still opening up, raising a bright future? In the NFC, I can name 4. I can tell you the Los Angeles Rams, now and into the years to come. The Philadelphia Eagles, rookie quarterback deal I'm talking about, still to build around. The Philadelphia Eagles didn't just win a title, they've got a window where the future is still brighter. The Minnesota Vikings, which we just talked about, and I believe the Dallas Cowboys, all have futures that are bright, that have title contention as part of their DNA, their strategy, their plan. Realistic optimism. How many in the AFC? I'm talking about take the Steelers and the Patriots out of this equation. Not just is your window open now, but is your window going to stay open? Is it going to open larger? Because the truth of the matter is, I can't find one. I can't find an AFC version of the Rams, the Eagles, of the Cowboys, or the Vikings. We can talk about the Texans, and you can talk about maybe the Chiefs, but they're not there yet. And there's a little bit of distance down the hallway until you get to that open window. By the way, did you guys see this article? Was it by Mike Reese, Rudy, that in the history of the New England Patriots, this set of weapons that Tom Brady is dealing with, this set of receivers, and these running backs are the worst of his career, the worst of the dynasty. And as we talked about which AFC teams have a bright future, have a title window that's opening, it's Rudy, because he's a naysayer, a general negative presence,
realist,
poo-pooed the Texans and poo-pooed the Chiefs. But we pointed out, what would Tom Brady do for the Chiefs' weapons? Outside of the Steelers, and maybe even including the Steelers, especially without LeVeon Bell, who has a better set of weapons in the league than the Kansas City Chiefs? Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce. Who's got a better set of weapons than Pat Mahomes? And if the Chiefs are going to be title contenders, Pat Mahomes is going to have to be the man to get the ball to all those weapons. Give me a call. 888-SAY-ESPN. Sell me on an AFC team that has a championship window that's about to open like the handful of NFC teams I could rattle off. And what will come of Le'Veon Bell's Kawhi Leonard play? That's next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. It's been a long offseason without football, but FanDuel has spent it getting into the best shape of their lives. That means this. FanDuel's ready for more. More ways to play, more ways to challenge your friends, and most importantly, more ways to win. And FanDuel also has new options for playing fantasy football, daily fantasy with your friends. Because the only thing better than winning cash is winning your friends' cash. They even have preseason fantasy contests running up to week 1 of the NFL. Right now, you can get a $20 bonus when you make your first deposit on FanDuel. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/Will Cain. That's WILLCAIN. Age and state restrictions apply. Who's got the championship window opening in the AFC? That's next on the Will Cain Show.
Will Cain. The Will Cain Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Will Cain gives you more. Next.
Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org number 30-30. Bulls, what they want to happen may be different. But the method that both Kawhi Leonard and LeVeon Bell have now embarked on to accomplish their goal is remarkably similar, and the reaction they're getting from their teammates is also starting to sound the same. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and ESPN News. Kawhi Leonard, whether it was because of injury or negotiation, did not report to the San Antonio Spurs for months and months on end until he was ultimately traded to the Toronto Raptors. San Antonio Spurs were willing to pay Kawhi Leonard. He wanted out. He wanted to be a Laker. And he didn't show up to accomplish his goal. LeVeon Bell wants to get paid. He's happy to remain a Steeler, but he doesn't want to play under the franchise tag. He wants to hit free agency, and he wants his full payment, and now he wants to preserve himself. Not unlike a guy who says he has a quad injury, he wants to preserve himself against wear, tear, and injury in the open market. His goals might be different, but his method's the same. He's not reporting to Steelers' training facility. He's not, at this moment, looking to be available for week 1 in the NFL. What did we hear from the San Antonio Spurs along the way? We heard guys like Tony Parker, Greg Popovich, begin to speak critically of Kawhi Leonard. And according to some reports, those were the moment of truth for Kawhi when he decided, I'm not going to be a Spur, when he heard things that Parker said. And today, what are you hearing from the Pittsburgh Steelers regarding Le'Veon Bell? This from Ed Bouchette, reporting what Ramon Foster, veteran guard, had to say. He said the following: "What do you do? Here's a guy who doesn't give a damn. I guess so we'll treat it as such. I just hate that it came to this." Foster with more. "He's making 7 times what I make, twice as much as Al Villanueva is making, and we're the guys who do it for him." Ramon Foster with yet more. "My mom died and I went to the funeral and came to camp the next day. Al has seen people die and he's come and given his all to this team. It's a little bit tiresome now. I'm tired of the antics." That's Ramon Foster. Marquise Pouncey also had things to say. Both guys, Kawhi Leonard, Le'Veon Bell, choosing to use their presence as a negotiating chip. And both guys' teammates sounding off in opposition. I've also asked you today, which AFC teams have their title window opening? Not the Pats and Steelers, whose window is firmly open, but you can't look into the future and go, yep, more of the same, future is brighter. But I'm talking about arriving on the cusp, like the Rams, like the Vikings, hell, like the Eagles, and I think like the Cowboys. You can tweet the show. Which AFC teams can you point to? Because I can't come up with any that are like that handful of teams in the NFC that are primed to give them Super Bowl dominance for 5 to 10 years. Tweet the show through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed at Will Cain Show. Nothing makes up for your football obsession like a surprise from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order a dozen multicolored roses, plus an extra bouquet and a vase for just $29.99, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Chad in Pennsylvania, you're on the Will Cain Show.
Hey, Will. So I disagree with Cerrone. I do think that the Chiefs are there. But one team I think a lot of people sleep on as a up-and-coming team is the Titans. Marcus Mariota, 24 years old, brought the team to the playoffs last year, has a top 3, potentially top 5 tight end in Delaney Walker, gets Dion Lewis to add to Derrick Henry to provide a little pass catch ability out of the backfield, and a defense that can make plays when needed. So I think that's a team that people sleep on, maybe because they play in not exactly the strongest division in the conference.
All right, Chad, I appreciate the call. The teams that I listed that are probable, that have some semblance of hope, that have some idea of the window cracking would be the Houston Texans, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Tennessee Titans. But when it comes to a team like the Titans, they're down the hallway looking through the room, seeing that there might be a crack, the window might be opening. I don't know yet that I could see Marcus Mariota guiding his team to a Super Bowl. I don't know that the Titans at best arrive at the Dallas Cowboys level of window opening, but they're certainly not at the Rams, Vikings, and obviously Eagles level. And the truth is, I don't think the Chiefs are there yet either. This is more the prospect of the window opening. With teams like the Texans and the Chiefs, they might soon have potentially an open window. But not now. With the Rams, Eagles, Vikings, and yes, I think the Cowboys, that window is now, and you can say for the next 3 to 5 years, that window gets larger. Kyle in Indiana, you're on the Will Cain Show.
Hey, well, how you doing? Love your show. What about the Colts? Colts are returning, with Andrew Luck coming back from his injury. We haven't seen him healthy in 2 years, and he missed a whole year. I mean, we still have QI. We have a decent receiving core. We have a nice young defense. When Luck was healthy, we moved up from wild card to divisional to AFC Championship.
Kyle.
What about the Colts?
Kyle.
Yep.
Come on, man. The Colts roster is atrocious. You have Andrew Luck. Watch this, okay? I'm surrounded by guys that talk sports on a day-to-day basis. I'm talking guys who live, eat, and breathe sports. So here we go. Travis, I want you to name an Indianapolis Colt. But wait, you can't use Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton, or Malik Hooker. Name an Indianapolis Colt.
I'm with you.
Come on.
Malik Hooker.
Nope. Can't say Malik Hooker, Bucknuts. Can't go with that. Mike A? Come on, Mike. Name a Colt besides those three guys.
Other than Jack Doyle, Marlon Mack.
Ah!
You don't want any of those guys?
My man plays fantasy football.
You're damn right.
Cerruti, could you have done it?
Yeah, Quentin Nelson, right? The guy they just drafted.
They just drafted him. That's right.
Yeah. There you go. What's the BC guy? Left tackle. Costanzo? Left tackle,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, Anthony.
Nailed it.
To be
Is
fair,
Bjorn Werner still on the
to
team?
be fair, I don't think Bjorn Werner is
He's
still
not, okay.
there. To be fair to Kyle in Indianapolis, could you look here? Can you name a Titan? No, let's up the ante really quick. I want you to name 3 Tennessee Titans. You can't name Marcus Mariota, Derrick Henry. That's it. Name 3 Titans. Not Derrick Henry or Marcus Mariota. Go, Cerruti.
Delaney Walker.
Yes.
Deion Lewis. And is the McCourty twin still on that team? One of them?
I don't know. But you could have gone Byard.
No. The McCourtys are both.
Taylor Lewan, the guy, Jack Conklin, the guy that they called.
The guy called in earlier and rattled off the names. That's why you could do it.
Yes, nailed it.
Okay, hold on. Name 3 Bengals. Not Andy Dalton, not AJ Green, not Joe Mixon. Go, Travis. And you're Ohio. You are Ohio.
I don't like the Bengals, though.
Name a Bengal outside of those 3.
TJ Houshmandzadeh.
Oh,
I see you, Mike. You so badly. You're like a kid in the classroom with your hand up. Ooh,
no, I'm
me,
just
me.
just disappointed in Travis. I mean, I thought he would at least get, Gio Bernard, Geno Atkins, Tyler Eifert.
Let's do this. Okay, hold on. Let's rehabilitate Travis really quickly. Travis, give me the 2 deep on the Ohio State Buckeyes defensive line. Go.
Joey Bosa, Chase Young, Jonathan Cooper, Draymond Jones. Do you want me to keep going? Or
said 2 deep that you got the starting 4.
Garrett Haskell. Who else are we missing?
I don't know. This is compelling, though. It's great.
Did you know ADT can design and install a smart home just for you? A new smart home at your service, customized for your lifestyle. ADT's automation even unlocks the front door for friends who arrive at your place early for the game while you're still out getting snacks. Now that's what I call game day service. It's all controlled from the ADT app or the sound of your voice and backed by 24/7 protection. Visit ADT.com/smart to learn more about how ADT can help keep your home safe and smart.
It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. Joining me now is radio host at 710 ESPN Seattle and our college football analyst, Brock Huard, on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Brock, I find this negotiation between the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks fascinating. The Cowboys reportedly, according to Adam Schefter, went up from a 3rd to a 2nd in their offer for Earl Thomas. To that, the Seahawks said, thanks, but no thanks. We don't want your 2nd. And it's a deal where me, as a Cowboy fan, Brock's like, well, I don't want you going higher than a 2nd. And apparently the Seahawks don't want what they're offering. It's like, I don't know where the meeting of the minds would be. I don't know what would have made the Seahawks say yes.
Probably a first, and maybe seeing Khalil Mack go for 2 firsts. I'm not comparing the two, obviously. Khalil is a whole lot younger and a more dominant player at a more need position that's drafted and paid top dollars, whereas the safety market's gotten a little bit soft. But if you were to say where's a deal to be made, I think that's probably the spot. Would have probably been the first round ranks, and Seattle didn't get that, and they're going to hold fast to their demands and their wishes. And you know what, frankly, Will, and I was saying this on my radio show this week, I don't really know what Earl Thomas was doing all through training camp. And I thought it was wise to get his butt to camp and not be fined or lose those game checks of $500,000 a year that he would never, ever get back. And he decided to get himself back, put a little pressure on the Seahawks so that they're going to make a move. And Pete obviously silenced a lot of that today, saying he's a Seahawk, and they're going to try to get him ready for week number 1.
Brock Huard here on the Will Cain Show. As a proposition, as a business negotiation, though, Brock, it is tough to. If I'm an agent right now, I don't know which works. I mean, holding out worked for Aaron Donald. It worked for Khalil Mack. It's not working for LeVeon Bell, and it didn't work for Earl Thomas. The question, the one last thing I come back to on Earl Thomas is what's 1 year worth. That's why I would never want to give up the first, because all you're guaranteed is 1 year. And if he walks next year from the Seahawks, I think the highest the Seahawks can get in compensation is like a 3rd-round pick, like 97th. It can't go as high as a 2nd. So the Seahawks passed on essentially improving their draft position, their comp pick, by a full round for 1 year of Earl Thomas. So in the end, that's the question. What's 1 year worth?
Yeah, that's fair. And I would say for Dallas in that case, and I'm sure, Pete and John said that back to Dallas, well, if he has a great year for you, franchise him. And based on the safety market and where that was going and what those financial terms look like, it wouldn't be anywhere near the pass rushing dollars or QB dollars or anything of that nature. So there still is that opportunity. And as far as the holdout goes, I would say for Aaron and Khalil getting their first major deal, okay, then I think it makes some sense. They've got tremendous leverage. They've got a lot of years ahead of them. For Earl Thomas, who's looking for his 3rd and final deal, his 3rd and final mega deal, and for a team who got burned by that 3rd deal with Marshawn, with Michael Bennett, and especially with Cam Chancellor, they just were not going to do that. And I think they were pretty clear with him from the very beginning that we're just not going to extend you. We will do all we can to try to find a partner out there. We will do all we can through the winter and into the draft, and even after the draft in the summer to see if we can find a partner. They did not. Whether Dallas, was indeed willing to give up their 2nd, today or yesterday, or when that was and what that exactly looked like, would be fascinating to see behind the scenes. And ultimately, the team is holding fast to what they believe the value is.
Radio host at 710 ESPN in Seattle and ESPN's college football analyst Brock Huard here on the Will Cain Show. Brock, I asked this yesterday of myself and my callers and various guests. If I give you these college football teams that lost this past weekend, if I give you the Texas Longhorns, the Michigan Wolverines, the Miami Hurricanes, and the Florida State Seminoles, which one of those losses do you think was true to form? In other words, you can push the panic button because that's really who you are. That shows you what you have in store for yourself this season.
So which one was the most real, kind of portending to more issues over the course of the season?
Yeah, so which fan base truly can freak out after 1 week?
That's a great question. I think Florida State has some legitimate concerns. Willie Taggart in year number 1. To lose at home, it's a new system. There's massive change there coming in with what Willie wants to do. They're problematic up front. They were never great up front, to be honest with you. Even in some of those Jimbo years, they could just never recruit that position at elite level. They did defensively, Will, but never offensively. And I would go do games there and be like, man, these running backs are pretty, wide receivers are pretty, Derwin James is pretty, and these pass rushers are pretty, but it almost felt like the NFL, like, gosh, who are these guys trying to line up front and block people, and can they do it consistently? And that, to me, was the most problematic is, and it's a system that should negate some of that, the tempo and a running quarterback and the dual threat nature and everything else, but that's problematic. I was also just not Braylon Edwards disappointed in Michigan, but that also stung to see Shea just not be able to pull the trigger. I think he will over the course of time, but being just poised to be the savior or heralded the savior is an awful lot of pressure on him, and I think you felt that in South Bend with him as well. That to me was the most probably disappointing effort was Michigan, because I think there's still a lot of upside. So as far as concern goes, yeah, what Florida State showed me at home was probably the most alarming.
Talking to Brock Huard here on the Will Cain Show. You bring up quarterbacks. Everybody's talking about Tua. But outside of Tua, you guys had some good quarterback play out there on the West Coast. Justin Herbert at Oregon had a nice little game opening weekend. What quarterbacks impressed you the most outside of Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, Herbert's a monster. He's going to have like 1,500 yards and 40 touchdowns before they play anybody, Stanford, at the end of the month, because they've got, a real, fortuitous schedule coming out to get him comfortable and feeling good. And by the way, Will, he is gigantic. I saw him at the Pac-12 Media Days. This is no joke. Blackledge and I were out there with Holly Rowe, and she's like, oh, why don't you two take a picture? And I was like, who is this tight end, D-end? Who is this monster? I mean, he's like 6'7", and he had this big throw going, too. I'm like, I don't know why I don't recognize this.
Wait, Brock, he's 6'7"? He's 6'7"?
I'm 6'5". Will, if you saw the picture, he's every bit of 6'6" plus, and got to be, I don't know, 245 pounds.
That's
with like
outside
a waist
the
of
Bill
28.
Polian. That's outside the Bill Polian quarterback draftable range.
Yeah.
That's
I
on
know,
the Paxton Lynch
I
scary
know.
tall side.
Yeah, I know. He's probably more of Carson Palmer, Joe Flacco. He may have to actually be squished at the combine rather than a lot of us that shoulders back, chin up, that did everything we could to be as tall as we could. But, yeah, obviously he was off to a great start. KJ Costello down at Stanford, don't sleep on him. And obviously Arcega-Whiteside was the receiver of the week, the offensive player of the week in the conference, and San Diego State shut down Bryce Love, but he came to play. Yes, you're right. The Pac-12 conference, not West, Manny Wilkins. Jake Browning did a lot of good things, just had two catastrophic mistakes down in the red zone, or otherwise I think we'd be talking about his performance. And Jared Stidham, for that matter, against one of the best secondaries in all of college football, to me was the game of the weekend. Auburn-Washington was what we all desire as both analysts and fans, Will.
Yep.
Give me more of that, man. Give me more of that kind of battle of conferences and foes, and I loved watching every bit of that football game.
Totally. And listen, I'm almost out of time, but I have to ask you this because you're out there on the West Coast. And you're right, that game was good. And I've been asking, is Jake Browning going to be the 2016 Jake Browning or 2017? He was both in one game. But the truth is there a little depression also when it comes to the way that game played out for the Pac-12? Because now, and we'll assume for the moment it's Washington, maybe it'll be Stanford, now you're really behind the eight ball making the college football playoffs.
Yes, now you've got no margin. And in about 10 days, 11 days, when Washington plays in Salt Lake City against Utah, that will be a gigantic game and maybe just as tough. That game went down to the final 3 minutes the last 2 years. We'll probably do so again, and for the Pac-12's sake, and obviously Washington's, they've got no more margin for error.
All right, good stuff, Brock. Hope to have you on more, man. Appreciate it.
You got it, Will. Take care, man.
All right, take care. Coming up, our top 5 in the 5. Today, my top 5, wait for it, hot sauces. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Cain Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. I got my top 5 in the 5 coming up. Should we play this game on air, or do we decide this is horrendous radio?
It's probably awful radio.
I think it is probably terrible radio. So let's try.
So let's do it.
Let's do it. The Where They Went to College game. Everybody plays that game. You started when you were a kid, when you had a little NFL sleeping bag and sheets, and now you do it when you're popping open a couple of cold ones. Hey, where did Alan Faneca go to college?
I was right, by the way. You guys were like, oh, he doesn't know where he goes. This is a weird one.
Well, yeah, it's a weird one. Nobody knows where Alan Faneca went to college.
Cerruti wasn't 100% sure. He goes, I need to check. Hold on.
Well, originally because I asked you where the original Steve Smith went to college. And I was like, I think I know this, but let me just check. And I was right. And none of you guys knew it. It was Utah.
It's a difficult one. And the reason we got in this game is because I said, hey, Brock Huard went to Washington. I know that. We just had Brock Huard on the Will Cain Show. But there's something in my head, like I'm at 95% Brock Huard is Washington, but there's a 5% tickle banging around in there going, why am I thinking about the Miami Hurricanes? And Travis points out, it's Brock Berlin. That's why you got a little Miami Hurricanes in there, because that name Brock is banging around in there, playing two teams in your head.
Nick Foles.
Nick Foles went to Arizona.
Yep. Where'd he go before that?
He transferred there from Arizona?
Another Power 5 school.
It's got to be in the state of Texas, right? No? He's from Austin.
Michigan State.
Did not know that. Nick Foles, a little spin through Michigan State, huh? Who beat him out? Why'd he transfer?
I want to say Connor Cook was there. Kirk Cousins was on the team.
By the way, it seems like all the quarterbacks that the Cowboys tried to draft before Dak Prescott have officially been cut. Paxton Lynch and Connor Cook on the street. Tony Dorsett. See, I just did that to you guys during the commercial breaks. But it's a great one. It's a great one. Okay, fine. It's Pitt, by the way. Do one more. You, Rudy, you quiz the three of us. Ready? Set. Go.
Jason Witten.
Come on. It's easy.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's nothing. Come on. What do you want me to do? You want me to talk about Kaepernick? You want me to play some sound? Or you want to play this game, huh?
Nike said, I think in general.
You want me to play sound? You want me to do this? I can do Kaepernick Nike. Should I do that, or you have another one for me?
Put me on the spot. Uh-oh.
Why are you looking at me?
Anybody else have one?
Okay, I'm ready. You got one?
Larry Allen.
Oh, that's super hard. It's Sonoma State. Boom!
Wow.
I had a good one, too, before you threw Larry Allen Sonoma State on. One more. DeMarcus Lawrence. Defensive end. You can do it. Come on, one of you. You can do it. No? Boise State. All right, that's it. Mike, ready for our top 5 in the 5? Take it away, Mike. He didn't know it was coming, did he?
Hold on.
Chalk
us up to another bump
Travis
air.
started running. He started running. Could you see that coming or something? Just what I say to Bubba, Mike. I say, Bubba, take it away, and he hits the production.
Bubba sets everybody up to fail.
He didn't tell you about that part of his job?
Bubba didn't tell me anything about production.
He didn't give you that?
How about I just press something?
Right. Well, the Cowboys are going to be terrible.
Top 5 in the 5. All right. We got to bail on the production? Cool. Top 5 in the 5. Here you go. My top 5 hot sauces. What? Why you hold your finger?
Hold on.
This is good because, by the way, I can't remember them.
Hold on. You want me to put them on the screen?
Yeah, I do.
The top 5
List radio talk is terrible.
in the 5.
The only thing worse than list radio is fumbled list radio. My top 5 hot sauces. And I got to tell y'all something. I'm not big on Tabasco. Never have been. Find it overwhelming. It doesn't preserve any of the flavor of the underlying thing I want to spice up. So Tabasco, not making the list. But I will stay in the state of Louisiana for number 5, little Louisiana hot sauce. That, still nice, little peppery taste, but doesn't make you think, hey, I'm eating Tabasco the whole time. Number 4, this one is a little overwhelming, but it's just nice. This is this is a nice left turn to take every once in a while. Throw it on some rice, but some sriracha. This right here, it's not your traditional hot sauce, and I'm not into the people that are throwing sriracha on ice cream and things like that.
Terrible.
What, sriracha in general?
No. Sriracha ice cream. That's horrible. I actually have
you tried that?
Yes.
I wouldn't even want to try that.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's a New York thing. I don't know. I got in the city once. It was terrible. But I actually have an interesting sriracha thing you can do. Leftover lo mein noodles, put it in the skillet, little sriracha, spices it up, makes it taste a million times better.
Speaking of a northern thing, New York thing, things that did not make my list. Texas Pete's, Frank's Red Hot. I never even encountered these until I moved up north. I'm not even slight them. I'm not going to tell you they're not great. But I'm telling you, they can't crack this top 3. So stay out of here with your northern hot sauces. Number 3, in the category of hot sauces that cannot be beat, all the same, Valentina's hot sauce. The thing about Valentina's is it usually comes in a very large bottle and is sitting tableside for you at a nice Mexican. Check that. A down-home Mexican restaurant. You can just douse Valentina's all in it. It's good. Doesn't overwhelm, and like most Mexican hot sauces, nice little smoky flavor. And number 2, Tapatio. Underrated. Probably the white label. Looks a little boring. Tapatio sauce. But at number 1, the best hot sauce, without a doubt, is your Cholula. Cholula. Smoky. Not overwhelming. Nice. That's your top 5 hot sauce. What are you shaking your head at already, Travis? What?
How did you leave off wasabi?
What does wasabi count as? It's not a hot sauce. What is it? What do you
It's like a hot paste.
That's my burp after Coke. Wasn't it Coke washing down the wasabi?
It was just taking a whole fistful of wasabi, thinking that it's no big deal, and then
thought it would be no big deal. What are you shaking your head at, Travis?
If you don't have Frank or Tabasco on it, the list doesn't. It's not.
Tabasco's overrated, man.
Your list is overrated.
You're overrated.
Like, put Tabasco on it.
No.
Texas overrated.
Have you had Cholula? Tell me that's not number one, just like Texas.
Tabasco top 5.
Spain and Fitz, no.
Thank you for listening to the Will Cain Podcast. You can listen to the Will Cain Show live weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Will Cain Podcast.